is Bold TV.
Good morning, wonderful people out there. Welcome to another episode of Bold TV. Bold, as we all know, stands for Beautiful, Outstanding Ladies with Disabilities. And we come your way every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to discuss issues that pertain to women and disabilities. And today, we come to talk about another interesting and very relevant topic, ableism in disability. So today we'll be talking about how this manifests among persons with disabilities. But before I go on, I'd just like to, briefly let you know that Bold TV is powered by Bold Arts Initiative, a network of beautiful, outstanding ladies with disabilities who are doing amazing things in their different spheres and have different gifts and talents. And so today, we've come to inform and educate, as we always do. And we crave your indulgence to stay with us, listen, and you will learn something that can help you if you are a woman with disability, or can help you too in your interactions with persons with disabilities. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about ableism. This is a concept that, is often related, when it's talked about, it's often in relation to non-disabled people and their interactions with persons with disability. So, but today we are going to talk about how this manifests within the disability community. But before I go on, as our normal tradition, I'm going to, allow the wonderful ladies here who are joining me to do justice to this discussion to introduce themselves. They are my co-hosts on Bold TV, and I'll just let them go ahead and tell you about themselves.
So, thank you very much, Affion. Good morning to all our viewers, our listeners, our fans out there. My name is Oluwatomi Adeyefa. I'm based in Abeokuta, Ogun State. I'm a broadcast journalist, a disability inclusion facilitator, a gender-based violence advocate, amongst other things. And it feels really, really awesome to be here again. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reki Andrew Essien. I'm a member of Bold Heart Initiative, the Idio Vega Foundation, among other things. I use a wheelchair from spinal cord injury. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You are welcome. It's good to have you here. And today I am your host. My name is Affion Etim, also called Fifi. I live and work in Uyo, the beautiful capital city of Akwa State. I'm a medical art scientist, and I'm also a member of Bold Arts Initiative, as well as the co-host on Bold TV. Ladies, you're welcome. So today we are going to be talking about ableism among persons with disabilities. But first, we're going to lay a foundation. What is ableism? Let's talk about, in a general context, what is ableism? Then why don't you go ahead?
All right, thank you very much. Ableism is a phenomenon whereby you attribute what a person is capable of doing, that is their abilities, their capabilities, to their physical appearance. In this case, to disability. So, for instance, someone reads or speaks good English, and then you say, and she's blind, though. Attributing the fact that they can speak good English, or they can dress well, or they can carry out any task to their disability. When you think less of a person, so when they do those things that you think they cannot do, you want to praise them. That phenomenon of singing their praise, of making it feel like they've done something extraordinary, something supernatural, when indeed these are just regular things that human beings do. So that is ableism. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So you've said that ableism, when a person's ability is judged based on how they present physically. And I think this is something that that often how persons without disability see and interact with persons with disability. Becky, you want to add to that?
So when we talk about ableism among persons with disabilities, in a nutshell, I think it is when people think among the disability community that there is a type of disability that is better than another type. So I'll just put it there. Thank you.
And then I want you to answer the question of how ableism manifests within the disability community. Thomason, why don't you answer the question?
Okay, so how does ableism manifest itself within the disability community? Okay, so I want to believe that when a person with disability conforms to the norms or assumption of the general society, when you as a person with disability, you see yourself as a weak person, as someone who is not capable, somebody who cannot do, especially that which has been said you cannot do. And so you don't give in effort. And even when the effort comes to meet you, it's scary. You don't want to go beyond what the people have already, said, or what the society have, stated that you should be able to do, or you should do. Take for instance, I remember, when I just got admitted into Moshood Abiola Polytechnic, and when I go out, you hear people say, "Oh, you shouldn't go anywhere. You should not stay. You should stay at home. If you must go out, you must go with somebody." Like, that's the typical thing that the society thinks I should be able to do. Just stay at home, don't go anywhere. And if you must go anywhere, you must have somebody to go with you, whether it's convenient or not. So if, for instance, I as a person sticks to that, and then probably when people ask me, "Oh, why don't you go out?" and I say, "I can't go anywhere because, obviously I need somebody to go out with me, or if I go somewhere I might get lost," and I just conform within that space, then it's manifested in me as a person with disability. And it's something that within our disability community, it's something that rears its ugly head a lot of times. Persons with a particular kind of disability, they say, "Oh, this is what they say we should not do." And so because they've asked us not to do it, and we are not capable of doing it, and so they don't do it. I give you an example here in Ogun State, where we have persons affected by leprosy. Leprosy is no longer an epidemic in Nigeria, but you have persons who at the time have been affected by it, and so it's giving them one form of disability or the other. You notice that these persons are still not very much accepted within the community, to the point that even when they go to the market, tradition has it that they can't go inside the market. So they have to just stay at the outskirts of the market, buy whatever it is they want to buy, and take their leave. Some people don't even believe that they are capable of, doing any other thing than stay in their lepers colony and things like that. So that is ableism within the disability community.
All right, thank you so much. So what you talked about, you mentioned how a person with disability sees themselves and how they've adopted what people's views about them. And I believe this is something that is called internalized ableism, where persons with disability see themselves as others describe them. They adopt that stereotype, what other people's opinions about them, they internalize it, they take it, and they've adopted it as their identity. And that's how they begin to, that informs how they interact with society and what they do. Osaki, please, since you have just joined us, introduce yourself and then contribute to that question.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies. I remain Osaki Teresa George Victoria. I'm a
How does ableism manifest in the disability community?
Thank you very much.
Practical examples.
All right, thank you very much. So I think that ableism manifests in the disability community when we see a lot of activities and interventions not crossing across disability clusters. So you see people deferring to, and should I say, the obvious disabilities, as it were, when it comes to interventions. I think that is a way that ableism portrays itself. So where you have maybe a benefit or a social protective measure being put in place, and as a leader or as a person in the disability community that has contact, and they say, okay, let's reach out to persons with disabilities without specifying the disability cluster. Most times what happens is that you will now see a tendency to a particular type of disability. And for me, I see that as a type of ableism among persons with disability. And it has caused some persons with disabilities in different clusters of disabilities to feel disenfranchised sometimes. So they tend to, even within the disability community, want to do their own thing, as it were, and it shouldn't really be so. So that's one key example of a way that I have seen ableism show itself in the disability community. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We talk about inclusion. We always shout inclusion. Society should, take us into account. Decisions should be made with us in mind. We should be consulted. We target this towards, the society around us, the world without disability around us. But within the disability community, just like you stated, it's possible for exclusion to happen. That where certain disabilities are seen as a priority, while others, the more visible disabilities are seen as a priority, while the invisible ones are not considered because they are like, what's wrong with you? Are you really disabled? Do you have something wrong with you? Because maybe you don't have a broken limb, you're not an amputee. There's no visible indication of disability, and so many people are excluded and disempowered. All right. So another thing that I would like to add is that when it comes to ableism within the disability community, when persons with disability themselves begin to see within them, amongst themselves, they think maybe somebody with let's say somebody with an intellectual disability is disregarded, and a person with maybe who has a mobility impairment sees himself as the true disabled person, while the person with intellectual disability is not considered as disabled because their disability is not obvious. It's very possible. Why I came up with this topic was because I think it came to a point, I suddenly realized that sometimes, I tend to, personally, I have not often thought about people that have other forms of disability, apart from the more common ones like mobility impairment, blind, visual impairment, deafness, and those very obvious ones. That there are people that have mental disorders like mental illness. There are people who have intellectual disability. There are people who have like you say?
Psychosocial disability, the invisible disability.
Yes, people don't see it. It's not obvious unless you interact closely with them. And so within the disability community,
let me chip in something there. During my MWF visa interview last year, we had another fellow who is with albinism. And when we got to the embassy, they attended to those of us who had the obvious or the visible disability, and then they refused to attend to her because they felt like, what's wrong with that? She's an albino, so, and it became like a conversation that we had, and they kept insisting that no, she doesn't have a disability, even though we all know that it's a disability, it's an impairment, so to speak. So I'm just saying this so that you know that this is something that exists even within the kinds of disability.
And then, another thing is the use of words. We keep insisting here to use the right words when addressing or speaking about types of disability. You hear persons with disability saying things like, oh, that person is crippled. Persons with disability, I'm not talking about people who are without disability. I'm talking about persons with disability, calling, using derogatory names for people, other persons with disability. They don't use the right terms. And, they don't even realize the impact that can have on another person. So these are forms of ableism. Like Freddy called out, talked about different clusters. There's a reason why there's that lack of unity, because certain people feel they are more entitled to empowerment. They are more entitled to social schemes that can help. Because, can't you see I cannot walk? Me, I cannot talk. Me, I cannot do. So my own is more. And then, why is this one following to come and collect? So these are some, segregation and then discrimination within the disability community. So, Osaki, you want to contribute? Let's see if your network is better.
Please move to the next question if it's possible.
Okay. Sorry, let me get the question. I did the question.
Answer the next question.
Okay, so just introduce yourself and then you're going to tell us what impact ableism has within the disability community. How does it impact persons with disability when, members of the same community display or interact with them with an ableism mindset? If you have heard what we've been saying so far about ableism within the community. So, Becky, do you want to take up that? What impact does it have? What impact does ableism have on persons with disabilities with regards to their interactions?
So one of the impacts it has, which I'll take from my example earlier, is number one, it disenfranchises some members of the disability community. The second one is that it affects advocacy efforts, because as the disability rights movement in Nigeria is, it should focus on all clusters of persons with disabilities. So if you look closely in today's advocacy, some groups of persons with disabilities, some clusters, are even clamoring that the Disability Discrimination Act doesn't cover them. So these are some instances of the impact of ableism that comes when the focus tends towards some form of disability and not all. The last one I'll say is, in the issue of accessibility, we see that impact played out so much. When people are advocating for accessibility, the tendency is towards advocating for accessibility for persons with physical disability, without understanding that accessibility affects all forms of disability. So ableism, just to reiterate my points, disenfranchising some members of the disability community, some clusters. The other one it does is that in advocacy efforts, it leaves out some persons. In accessibility advocacy, tends to be focused towards the obvious physical disability. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So advocacy efforts are stifled, they are hampered because some persons with disabilities, some types of disabilities are not included in decisions that are made. They are not included in efforts advocacy efforts. And then that discrimination causes, whereby when we should come together and work together to see how we can present a unified front, many are left out. There is exclusion. And so many people are deprived of access to solutions to their needs. Tommy, do you want to add to that?
Okay, so another thing it does to the disability community is that it now leaves some clusters of disabilities to play catch up. When we are supposed to all be moving on the same level or at the same level, getting things done to us in equity, it means that some persons, some clusters of disabilities would have benefited. It's the remnants that will now, it will now be like the other kinds of disability would now be an afterthought. Like, oh, okay, so these people are also, do you understand? So that does not bring about equitable distribution of resources or opportunities, as it were. And then it also gives the cluster of disability that, see themselves, they see themselves as superior. And so it begins to look like some persons with disabilities are more disabled or are more with an impairment than the other people. And so that still goes back to the equity table. It still goes back to that. And this can also affect persons with disabilities psychologically. When you think that you are a second fiddle or an afterthought, or you are not being recognized as much as you should be, or whatever is getting to you is not even meeting your demand, depression can begin to set in. Then you see that some of these persons will now begin to huddle themselves together. They won't want to mix up. That integration will not be there. You won't see them interacting so much. They'll just become secluded, and it could also affect them socially and psychologically. Thank you.
All right. I like the mental health angle you brought up, how you talked about how it impacts mental health. Because by the time, people that, you should draw comfort from, people you should, be encouraged by, are the ones that are actually discriminating against you. It can have a huge impact. It can have a huge impact on your mental health, become anxious. Who do you actually turn to? If persons, you should actually receive encouragement from, people that you should get together with and draw inspiration from and get information or help from, are the ones that are actually discriminating against you. It can cause depression, it can cause anxiety, and it can affect, a whole list of psychosocial effects that it can have. All right, thank you, ladies. We're rounding up now, and we're going to just one more question before we round up, and that is, how do we mitigate this impact? What are the ways we can mitigate this impact as individuals, as a community? What are the things that we can do to help mitigate this impact, to reduce this impact, and slowly get rid of this concept, this mindset that happens within the disability community, so that we can come together as a unified group and be able to interact with the world around us and be able to get the help that we need, so that we can move forward, so that inclusion and accessibility will not be, something that is given to a few. All right, so Frankie, how do we mitigate this impact?
Some of the ways you can mitigate it is, number one, you can learn other disabilities. So if you're a person with physical disabilities, it's okay to learn, and nobody is expecting you to be an expert on all things persons with disabilities. So one of the things that we can begin to do is learn other disabilities. Let your curiosity about how other persons with disabilities are adapting, how they are moving, how they are doing things, let it pique your interest, and you find out, how is a woman with CP operating within her space? Autism, how does it work? You can ask questions. You can attend seminars. It must not be that it must be for other people. You can be interested. So if they're doing a cerebral palsy awareness, let's say Zoom, whatever, it's okay to attend. But don't be the one always speaking. You can attend and learn from that space. And that way you are able to be better informed on other forms of disabilities. Another thing that we can do, especially as advocates, is that we can be intentional about advocacy, where you ask yourself pertinent questions. In my work in advocacy or awareness, but am I doing enough to ensure that cross-disability representation is happening? You can ask yourself those key questions, especially if you're a leader in the disability community. And the last thing that I will say about it to mitigate it is this: if you are the person on the receiving end of ableism, where you feel that in my community, don't consider me, you may want to show up. So do what a person with disability would do when we find ourselves in the space where persons without disabilities are not being inclusive. So you can show up and begin to teach people, whether they want or not, within the disability community about your disability. I particularly like a lady with disability. She writes, she rights women. She is an advocate for mental disability, and she saw that gap within the disability community. But she didn't shy away, because mental disability and psychosocial disability are one thing that people don't even still talk about now. So what she did was she showed up and started to push the conversation, even within the disability community. And there was a quick realization among persons who were in that meeting that without intentionally doing it, we are even discriminating against persons that psychosocial that have psychosocial or mental disability. So these are some of the things I would say that we can begin to do to mitigate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've mentioned some key things, one of which is intentionality. Increase your awareness. You cannot, there's no how you will know about somebody without interacting with them, without intentionally seeking to know what is happening with them. And so as a person with disability, regardless of your type of disability, find out, don't make assumptions about another type of disability. Interact with somebody who has that disability, if that is possible. Go on the internet, get information, find out how does this disability, how does it manifest, how do they live their lives, how does their disability interact with the environment around them. Get information, be informed, be educated, and then in time become an educator, be the one advocating. Where you go to meetings or places where certain types of disabilities are not included, you can step up and say, hey, I think you are missing something here. There's something you're not. Have you taken into account that there are people with this type of disability? Is there anything we can do for them? You become, from information, you become an advocate and you can help other people. Thomas, do you want to add to that?
Yes, my adding to it will come from that angle of being intentional as well, because we can learn, you can make research, you can know, you can even have friends within the other clusters of disabilities. But when it comes to actually implementation or executing projects, and then you still look the other way, I've seen it happen a lot of times. Then you find out that persons with disabilities will not be the one to say, oh, if I bring these people to this event, it will cost me more. They wouldn't really. I've seen people who say that when you want to have maybe a program for academics or for intellectual conversations, that there are some kinds of disability that you don't bring on board because they rarely go to school, or a lot of them are semi-illiterate or illiterate, and so they begin to discriminate. And I say that, okay, so why not include them, allow them to also contribute to such programs in their local language, So it means that we must just go beyond seeking information, because some of us actually know. We know, but when it is time to implement, that's when we now begin the division and discrimination by ourselves. So it has to be intentional from the beginning to the end. And, it has to be something that you engrave in your doings. So whether it is you, whether you know someone, whether you stumble on an event or you are being invited somewhere, you have just to ensure that you are inclusive in totality, so that no one, like we say, would be left behind. So it has to be intentional through and through.
All right, thank you so much. So intentionality when it comes to decision making, when it comes to taking action, when it comes to carrying out, advocacy, it starts from you, the individual. Don't say, oh, it's for the organization, it's for these people. You as an individual can make it happen. So Osaki's network has not allowed her to contribute in person. So I'll just read out what she said as to how the impact of ableism in the disability community. She says it can cause comparison, judgment, and misunderstanding of each other's disability. And then one way she says that you can mitigate this impact is to have mutual respect, knowing that every disability comes with its own challenges and strengths, and avoid ranking and comparing. And that's very true. There is no disability that is one is better than the other. There is no disability that is more disabled. There is nobody that is more disabled than the other. So we must take this into account when we are dealing with each other. So for the individual, I would say to you, question your beliefs. If for any reason you find yourself like me at some point thinking, being self-absorbed and focusing on just me and what I think I know, question it and find out, is there more I should know, or is there more I can do? And then as a community, we need to come together. It no longer serves us to be doing our own thing. Oh, this is our cluster, this is our thing. It's just us. It no longer serves us. It's high time we come together and become a unified voice, because that is the only way we will make impact in the world around us and get ourselves focused. So thank you so much, ladies. This has been quite an insightful conversation, and I'm glad we've had this conversation today. So ladies, thank you. Before we go, I'd just like to say thank you to our online audience. We appreciate you so much. Without you, there would be no need for us to be here. So thank you so much for always being there, for always tuning in. And we call on you to continue to partner with us. If you're watching this video, partner with us in any form, in cash or in kind. If you want to be part of this, come as a guest to contribute, please reach out to any of the co-hosts here, you can see, and we will get back to you. You can send in your questions or comments. And please do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and share the videos far and wide. Somebody out there needs to hear what we are sharing here. So thank you so much for being with us. And until we come your way next week, Saturday, same time, 10:30 a.m., we say stay focused and be good to yourself and others. So ladies, let's unmute our mics and just say bye-bye to our audience. Thank you. See you
Bye-bye.
next week. Bye.
Lots of trouble.
This is Bold TV.